Welcome back to I Want Her Job, where we are featuring curated career conversations that will help you grow and inspire your inner light that you share with others. My name is Brianne Burrows, and I am the founder and curator of I Want Her Job. This season, we're talking all about transformation and the in-between. It's that awkward phase when you're on your way from where you've been to where you want to be. And this is a spot where I found myself so many times in my life and in my career. And to some extent, I think I even, feel it now in my existing career and definitely in my life. And so I'm excited to broach this topic with one of my dear friends, Aria Stewart, who is our featured guest on episode 2 of our I Want Her Job podcast. Aria is a Montana native who has built a career in film, TV, and photo production over the past 18 years at companies such as Disney and Hasbro. Aria joined Lululemon in 2016 to lead global brand studio production and operations, first in Vancouver and now in Los Angeles. Aria and her team deliver innovative, high-volume photo and video content for Lululemon's global marketing channels. She also manages the product sample flow for teams across the organization, driving seamless cross-functional collaboration to meet creative and commercial objectives. As the Senior Director of Global Brand Studio and Sample Operations, Aria's creative vision lies in the dynamic workflows she builds and the strong leaders she develops. She lives in Ojai, California with her husband and beloved rescue animals. And I'm so excited for you to get to hear her advice and wisdom today on episode 2 of our podcast. And for those of you who are joining us online and not via your favorite podcast platform, I want to give you an extra thanks because you'll see we're working through some video challenges in terms of the quality on these first couple episodes. So thank you for bearing with us. Rest assured, as the episodes progress, the video does with it as well. Video is definitely not my forte, and so I'm getting into it. And thank you for being with me and with I Want Her Job as we grow and go on this journey together. So without further ado, let's dive in. Aria, thank you so much for joining today. It's great to see you.
Thank you. You too.
So one of the things I love is that you and I have a Montana connection. We're both raised in Montana, and we were introduced by Carol Schmidt, who was the alumni magazine for Montana State University. You actually went to my rival university. I'm a University of Montana girl.
And Montana State.
Yeah. Enter the obligatory Go Grizz here.
Always.
And Carol connected us when I moved to LA. I moved down there for a job. I didn't know anybody. And she said, meet Aria. And I thought you just sounded like an amazing person. You had done so much in your career, which I was so impressed with. I even wore my little Montana shirt for you today.
Oh my gosh. I know, I should have put mine on. That's amazing. Love it.
You've got the background. I love it. The ode to Montana. Yeah. So I'd love to have you introduce yourself. I mean, when I first heard about you, Carol introduced you as this dynamic woman who is out changing the world in LA from Bozeman, Montana. And she said that, that there were certain things that she reminded me of you and you of me and all of those things. And I thought it was really fun. And the first time I met you, I walked into a toga party.
Yeah, that tracks. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your LA life, how you got there. You're still there now in the area, but I'd love to just hear a little bit about your background and for people who don't know you as well as I do.
Yeah, definitely. Well, first of all, yes, go Cats. I love that Cat Grizz is still a thing. And as a small tangent to start, my husband, I took him to his first Bobcats game a couple of summers ago, and we weren't even playing the Grizz. I think it was one of the like a team from one of the Dakotas or something. And there were still kids in the crowd chanting like, "Eat shit, Grizzly, go Cat, go!" Like they were still. And I was like, wow, this is like 20 years later, they're still doing this, and it's such a funny rivalry. Anyway, so yes, grew up in Montana, and I love that the way you describe moving there and not knowing anyone and still just taking that plunge. It was the same for me. The only people that I knew when I got there were other Montana kids, and I was always happy to meet other folks from Montana. Yourself, like any of I think probably the first chunk of my career in LA after college was all of my jobs were thanks to Montana people. They were and are such a I think a unique group of people that that work so hard and are so dedicated and loyal, and we all just wanted to help each other out. So it was a bit of a leap, of course, coming from Montana, but I was so excited to do it because I just felt really supported, and I felt like even if I only had a couple friends there, that we were very like-minded and we were kind of in it together, and that just made all the difference. So, and I mean, there's still a couple of folks from those early days that I'm in touch with, which is also just beautiful. I mean, yourself included. But yeah, so my degree was at the time, I think the university called it Media and Theater Arts, which was a very kind of broad photo film. They didn't really know what to call it. Now it's a much more it's film and photography. The school is much more built up and recognized, but when I was there, it was still kind of new. But Montana is one of those places that you just can't, as you can't fake those mountains. So there was a surprisingly strong film community in Bozeman and around Montana, because people would come up there all the time to shoot because they just couldn't get that kind of landscape, anywhere else in the country. So I felt really lucky that I had already done some internship type things, and I just felt ready to jump in. And I did, a little bit of freelance, a couple of years, maybe 3 years, and I didn't love it. I hated the constant hustle, and I really just wanted to work for a studio or a company. That was really not that I wanted to, that I love the corporate world, and for all the things, it has its issues, of course, but I just didn't like. I wanted to be doing the work. I didn't always want to be chasing it at the same time too. So when the opportunity for Disney came up, I took it immediately because it just felt like it was a great way for me to get into that studio world. And I mean, I always loved animation, but it certainly wasn't like a focus for me in school. That's where the job was. And I started as a PA. I was doing production management type work, working with all the artists for feature animation. And I was there for 5.5 years. And it just became my whole life. I mean, especially when you're, just getting your foot in the door like that we worked so many, we lived at work, we worked all the time, 6 days a week. All of my friends, my entire social circle was Disney people, and I loved it. But I think after 5.5 years of that, and just kind of looking around at some of my peers and mentors as well, because I had one of my first bosses, her name was Monica. She's fantastic, and she had just been there for so long and knew so much about the craft. And I was like, I don't know if I have it in me to do this, this type of investment of just working your life for that much longer. I wanted to give myself a little space. If that makes sense. I'm talking a lot, so tell me if I'm
No, it absolutely makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I kind of felt like I was ready for a change. And so yeah, so I got, how many years was it total in LA? I think about 7 years in LA total, maybe 8. I moved to Rhode Island after that. Do you want me to just keep going down
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you went from this life in LA, where you're working at Disney, and then you went to the opposite side of the coast.
Yes.
So what inspired that move and that change in your life?
Well, I actually went because my partner at the time, now my husband, he was looking at different grad schools and landed on Brown, which is in Providence, and he also is a Montana guy. So that was we weren't really sure how we were going to feel about living in that part of the world, but I think since I was feeling like I kind of wanted to change the scenery as well, we were like, all right, let's try it. Let's just see how it goes. And I actually landed at Hasbro, the toy company. And I think I've talked to you a little bit about my husband.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And the funny thing, and this hopefully will become apparent once we get to the Lululemon, my current job. But one thing I've definitely noticed about my career over the years is that I think to an outsider, it looks like I've worked at a lot of different places, but my work and the skill set that I bring to each of my roles is the same across all of them. I think I've always been really drawn to work where I can be facilitating creative art. I don't want to be the one making the art because I just don't. I do not have those bones in my body, but I love seeing it come to life, and I love feeling like I'm, removing roadblocks, opening doors, finding like my creativity is finding ways to make that art with the time and the money that you have, like being creative about putting it together in that way. So it was animation at Disney, and then at Hasbro it was toy commercials. And I mean, I guess there is the through line of the children's entertainment piece. And as a result, I have still so many boxes of toys and like so much kid stuff around my house. And I don't have children. And it's kind of funny when new people come in and I have all these like collectibles and toy things on display, and they're like, oh, these are yours.
Love that.
But they're all great mementos. And yeah, so toy commercials. So Hasbro, they're based in Rhode Island, in Pawtucket, which is just north of Providence, kind of between Providence and Boston. Their headquarters is in their old toy factory, since the company started there. And they had a studio within that headquarters building that did most of the toy commercials, except the ones they would shoot on location in LA and stuff. But the rest they did there. And it was like My Little Pony, Transformers, Mr. Potato Head, like a lot of those classic brands. They also had the rights, I think they still do, had the rights to all the Marvel toys. So we did a lot of that stuff, Marvel, which was funny because we were working with Disney. And I'm just like, okay, well, here we are again.
Full circle.
Yeah. So it was a different medium, but very similar type of work. And we were there for about 3 years. And my husband was doing, he was doing a 5-year, it was a like master's and PhD combined. So it was a long program. And after 3 years, he was at the point where he could do the rest remote. He was mostly just writing, doing his dissertation. He could do it remote. So we talked about it and decided we really missed being on the West Coast, and that, or at least more in the West, that felt more like home for us. So we just started, when we realized he could do it remote, we started looking at other places on the West to go. Do you want me to keep going?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I love hearing about these different decision points that you made along the way. So a lot of it was kind of spurred by life and things that were happening in life, but also, there were motivating factors for you in terms of how you made the decision. And when you're working for a big company and you're in a role that you feel good about, it can be hard and scary to leave that role, go to another
Oh,
role,
absolutely.
even though life is dictating that change in this case, as it was partner. So yeah, I want to hear more about that.
Yeah. And I think it's, I never want to discount what you're saying, that it is, every time you kind of uproot yourself in that way, whether it's physical location or job or both, or, relationships, everything, it's a major life event every time. And it kind of, I think it takes a lot of energy to get to that point where you feel okay to do it, but then actually executing it and coming out on the other side, in one piece, it's a lot. And I think that, I mean, I've been at my current company for almost 9 years. So I think there is something to like getting to the point where you just don't want to do that upheaval anymore. But anyway, yeah.
So when you went from Rhode Island, you moved back to California.
Yeah. Well, no, that's when we went to Vancouver.
Oh, you went to that's right, because you were in Vancouver for a while, but you went to Lululemon,
Yes.
to their Vancouver location.
Yes, because they're based there. And I am, yeah, and I was just assuming I would have to go back to animation. And so I looked at, I interviewed at Pixar around San Francisco, Leica, which is an animation studio in Portland. They did the Coraline movie. And then, and then Sony Animation in Vancouver. But so I kind of just planned, I took, I did a little kind of road trip up the coast, visiting places and talking to people and seeing, those were all places I had been, but never places I had lived. So just kind of trying to figure out what felt like the right fit. And I actually have to give a shout out and kudos to my best friend, Jessica, in Chicago. I love when you get these little nuggets from people who know you well. And then in hindsight, you realize it was one of the best pieces of advice you got. We were both fans of Lululemon, as it was just out in the world. We loved the clothes. We both wore it quite a bit. And I think it was just a summer visit to her. I was out visiting her house in Chicago at one point and talking about how like, oh, I need a change, but I don't know if I want to go back to animation. I don't know what I want to do. Like just kind of talking through it with her. And She said, "Why don't you work at Lululemon?" She just like
That's
she just
amazing.
suggested
That's
it.
amazing.
Yeah,
Having this conversation with your friend, she says,
yeah.
why not? Why don't you just
Why
try that?
not?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you love the clothes. You're like, I've always been, you love yoga. You're really into that aspect of physical movement. And like, they
Yeah.
obviously have content out in the world. Somebody's making it. So, why
Look into
not?
it. See if there's an opportunity.
I
Yeah.
know. And she, of course, made it sound so easy, but I was like, okay. And that idea kind of stuck in my head. And so that was actually the only place I visited on that trip that I didn't actually have an interview. I just had a meeting with somebody who was I found some mutual friend. And so that one was the most casual, the most just kind of this might be fun just to see the building, meet somebody kind of thing. And I loved Vancouver, and it's such a beautiful city. I still love it. That kind of hit me right away. And then I loved the woman I met with, who's still the company. We're still friends. She's great. And it just kind of, I don't know, it just felt, I was like, wow, I really like the feeling
It
of
felt
just,
right to you. It
yeah, it's a
felt
good
like
vibe.
this would be a place that I could envision myself and work
Yeah.
and, spend all those long hours.
Yes, it was a good, yeah, exactly. It's where, yeah, you're going to be spending a good chunk of your life there. Where do you want that to be? Um, yeah, I mean, fast forward a few months, they posted a role that was kind of similar to something, it was like producer type of work. They at the time the photo studio was completely internal at the head office. It was a pretty small space, small team, and they just needed somebody to manage it and run it and hire some new people and kind of staff it up. And well, it seems like it's like what I have done in the past, just for different mediums. But so gave it a shot. It clicked, and
So
yeah.
I want to pause on that for a second because you went to the office and you met with someone who was a mutual friend. Did you find them on LinkedIn, or how did you know that you knew someone to meet? Like how did that connection happen? Do you remember?
Um, I think. Oh yes, okay, I remember. One of the assistant editors I worked with, who was a friend as well when I was working at Hasbro, he at the time was dating someone who was a graphic designer, and I hung out with them outside of work occasionally, and she had a friend who was an art director.
I love this. See, these are the stories I love.
Yeah, and it was a very like, oh, I know someone at Lululemon. Oh yeah, she's an art director, and I don't know, she might know someone you could
Kind
talk
of
to.
came up in
And
conversation that you had this moment with your friend, and she
it was
said, "What's
very
this?" And
organic.
then you were really interested, and you were just saying, "Hey, I think I might check this out and explore this." And then they happen to know someone.
I know, and
That's
it does not
amazing.
always happen that way. I will say,
Yeah.
it just I think it's when it does, when you find those moments where, oh, there's a connection there, or there's somebody I might be able to talk and just have a human element to it. I think especially now when so much is done online, sometimes all of your interviews are on Zoom and you don't even have there's no face to face.
Right.
Yeah, I think whenever you see an opportunity to have those moments, I always try to grab it. And and it can be a little bit of a stretch. I mean, this was a friend's girlfriend's friend or something,
Right,
and
and you have to put yourself in that uncomfortable situation. I think that can be tough for a lot of people, especially those who are more introverted, because
mm,
you've got to go out into this situation that might feel a little scary or nerve-wracking, and go and meet with a stranger and get to know them and share information about yourself. But you don't get to that point where you are right now without taking that chance.
it's true. And I would say my best piece of advice, the thing I always try to remember when I'm in those situations, because it can be intimidating, is just to be very gracious and appreciative for their time. Because I think also being on the other end of that and having meetings with people who are interested in or just want to get to know you, or I think it never feels like a burden to me if the other person is clearly appreciative to be there and appreciates your time, their time, and you can tell they're really valuing it. I think I always, yeah, so I always just try to, send thank you cards after and all that jazz.
It's something I've noticed. So it might be something that I've noticed it more recently, but I'll have some friends who will say, "Hey, can you meet with my daughter?" Or "Can you meet with this cousin?" Or someone I work with is like, "Oh, hey, will you meet with this person? Tell them about marketing and what it's like." And so I will. And then there's no follow up after. There's not
That's
only
wild
not
to
a thank
me.
you, but there's no follow-up. And I'm always very generous, like, hey, I'll open my network to you. If there's anyone, add me on LinkedIn. If there's anyone you want to connect with, let me know and I'll see what I can do. And then it's just nothing. And it makes me wonder if I think it's this new generation coming into the workforce right now. They just don't necessarily have that skill set or that muscle developed to get out there and know that you have to make these connections, but then it's about more than that. It's also following up. I know people and I have a big network, and I'm also very careful about that network. But like, if you're someone who seems interested, I feel now it's that interest and the follow up is what really sets you apart.
I mean, not to date myself, but I really believe that a thank you note never goes out of style, you know?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And it can even be a thank you email, but that
Totally.
acknowledgement, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing I wanted to mention, you mentioned it and then breezed right past it, but it's a big important piece of time. You said it was 3 months later from when you met with her until when you had an interview for this position that
Mhm.
maybe wasn't the perfect fit kind of position, but it was what got you your foot in the door. And there's two things I want to touch on there. And the first one is that there were 3 months that you were kind of living in this in between state. And this season is focusing all on times of transition, like what it feels like, how you get through it, specific things that helped you. So, this 3 month period, while it might seem like just a short amount of time now, when you were in it, it was probably, I imagine, tough. And
Oh,
you're
oh my
wondering, like,
gosh.
what
Yeah.
am I doing? What's next? I worked at Disney, I worked at Hasbro, and here I am right now unemployed, like trying to figure out what's coming next. So what was that time like for you?
I think because I had actual interviews at a couple of other places at the same time, I didn't feel it helped me not fixate on one thing too much. I knew, okay, I'm gonna see what comes back from this company, see what comes back from this, see what comes back from this. And it was kind of it helped me just juggle and not just be so concerned about this one job. And I think it's about striking a balance between following up and staying top of mind for these folks that you just met with. So you don't, you have to always assume there's so many other candidates. And I think it's that balance between staying top of mind while not being too, obnoxious about it. You don't want to be every other day following up with people, but I think just staying in touch in a meaningful and respectful way was the best approach. And they all panned out. There were actually offers from a couple of other places, and I felt very lucky to have that. But it also it was a tough choice, I think, and it was one of those times that felt, like you were saying, it felt very long in the moment, and now looking back at it, it was like a flash, So the
Right.
perspective
Right.
helped too.
Definitely. Well, I love too hearing about your mindset at that time, that you had, some different leads going all at once, and you had that confidence in yourself that you're going to, end up at the right place. And not only did it lead to an offer, but it led to multiple where you could actually make that decision of what felt best for you.
Yeah,
That's
no, I was very lucky to have that, and I think it I think going out and looking for a job, I mean, it's like, it's like dating in some ways. There are parts of it that are really fun and exciting, and there are parts that are always stressful and intimidating, and you're putting yourself out there in one way or another, And I always I've never tried to force it. I always feel like I want to pursue it as best I can. I want to make sure if it's something, I want to make sure if it matters to me, it shows that it matters, that they see that it matters to me as well. Um, but that's probably relates to what we were just saying about the thank you cards. I never want someone to have the impression that it's just a throwaway meeting for me. But at the same time, I also believe that, what will be, and the one that comes together is the one that comes together. And it's not, it may be your job for the next 9 years. It may be your job for the next 6 months. And nothing has to be permanent. Usually nothing is permanent anyway. So
Well,
yeah.
I love that mindset. And I think it's something that comes the more seasoned that you are in your career, because when you're first getting out, and breaking into the career force, you want that job.
Oh
And
yeah,
then
just
it's really
anything.
fun if you have the job with like the big name too, and you feel good about yourself and you're like, oh, my degree's paying off. I did this. I'm so proud. But at a certain point, you realize it's not necessarily about that. It's about, what is the right fit for you
Yeah.
and the right type of place that brings you fulfillment and, where you're passionate about the work you do. You like the people that you're with. You're hopefully invested in the brand that you're growing, that you're a part of growing.
Yes. I
So
know. And I think that's, even, in the early days, yeah, it was any job is great because you're putting it together for the first time and, you can't be as picky. But I also don't think I didn't know myself as well as I do now when I was first getting started. And I think that time and maturity, in your career, but also as a person is, you really have to listen to that because you probably won't know what's the perfect fit for you until you kind of try a few things out. And, hopefully when you recognize it when it feels right. And I think, yeah, I never thought I would stay at a company for more than 5 years. That just, even the time at Disney, I thought that's the most I'll ever put in. I've got to move around. And Hasbro was about 3 years, and I was like, okay, that's a good happy medium. And here we are. And I've thought that many times as I've gotten, into like the 7, 8, 9 year mark, and I'm getting up to 10 years soon. And that blows my mind, but I also feel really good about it. I kind of check in and it's like, no, this still feels like a really good fit. So I don't want to throw that away just because I have some idea about time.
I love that you do those check-ins with yourself, though.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
I was talking to a friend who told me that he does quarterly check-ins, and I absolutely love that idea because it's something that we do in our jobs. So why don't we do it in our personal lives too and take inventory, stock of where we're at and what we want and how we measure up against our expectations of ourselves. So
Yeah, very well
I think we
said.
need to give ourselves some more grace too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so there's this job opportunity, and you had mentioned it wasn't exactly like the perfect title that you might have, picked out for yourself if you could pick anything. But it was the opportunity that felt right with the right brand. So I like that aspect too, because, I don't know what some of the titles were of the other jobs that you were looking at, but it's cool that you picked the one that felt right to you.
Yes, yeah. Even though, yeah, it felt like the right combination of things. It felt like the right location. It felt like the right brand. It was a brand that I actually really enjoyed. And even though it was apparel instead of, animation or commercials, it felt like, well, it is still the commercial world, but it wasn't toys. It's a different end product. The creative thing that we're making is a different end product, but I mean, right from the beginning, I knew that I really appreciated what the brand was actually putting out into the world. And that matters. I mean, it sounds kind of cheesy, but it has really made a difference for me. And I think, I think going and expecting to get all of the things, perfect location, perfect title, perfect company, all the things you want, probably is unlikely. I think it's good to be realistic about which of those things matters. What are your top two? What are the top two things that really matter for you? And if it's about being a specific place in the world, or if it's about a specific title, great, then go for that. And then don't be afraid to make a couple of, not even necessarily compromises, but adjustments. And okay, we'll see where that goes, because I think giving myself that permission to step into something that was a little bit different than what I had been doing in the past, but knowing that there were a couple of other things that are at the top of my list that were there, that mattered to me, that's all I needed. It's kind of just organically worked, I think, for
Growing into it. Yeah. And so one of the things too that I think is needed, I mean, you'd been living in the United States, and then for
Oh
this job,
yeah,
you go to Vancouver, Canada. And I
yeah.
think I was talking to you when I sent you a Christmas card, and you have a dual citizenship. Is that correct?
I do. Yes, I believe
Yeah,
it.
you had an address in Canada and one in California. I said, where
Yeah.
do I put this?
And it was always so funny. It kind of just depended on which like friends or family. Like certain people just got it right away, but certain people, I think, because Canada it's still North America and it's so close, people forget that it's a different country. And I would get, like people trying to send a package and it would get stuck in customs, or they'd have to pay a fee for customs. And it was like blowing
I
people's
didn't
minds.
even think of it. Yeah, they're like, oh, I'm
It's a
just sending
different
this
country.
to Aria in Vancouver.
Yeah. I love, that was a huge draw for me too, I wanted a chance to live. And we're, like for us, it's, I mean, in Europe, it's so easy to just, everything is so much closer. You can live and work in different countries fairly easily, I think, at least distance wise. And I mean, for us, it's really like this is the closest and easiest opportunity to do that without needing to learn a new language. Although I was in French club in high school, and I will say it came back, and I was like, ooh, I can use my French because there's so many French
That's
Canadians.
amazing. That's amazing.
Never thought I would pull that out again, but yeah, it was. I was saying I still love that city. I think it's Vancouver, BC. I mean, Canada in general. And it's beautiful, and it's a very. I feel very lucky to have been there, and even more lucky to have the citizenship. And that was definitely a goal in the back of my head when we moved. I didn't know if we'd be there long enough to get that because it's kind of a phased thing. You have a visa, and then you have permanent residency, and then citizenship. So you kind of have to work your way up, and you have to be patient and it's a very slow governmental process, so you just have to kind of keep at it. And I was really, really happy that it came together right before we moved back to California.
How ironic.
I know, just in time.
So you're living in Vancouver, you're in this job, you are working for a brand that you love, that you wear, that you think is fantastic. Tell me about what was your life like at that point? What were you doing when you would come into the office? Tell me a little bit about the
My
type
gosh,
of work and your
it
team.
was so different than what my job is now. And I will just preface by saying this because this kind of relates to your question about stepping into a title or role that was a little bit different than what I've been doing, or I think one of the reasons I've stayed at the company, and one of the things I love the most, is that about working for this in this role and with this team, is that my title and job has been pretty different. I was going to say wildly different, but maybe I'll just say I'm wanting to sound positive because I really enjoyed that. I have had basically a different job every year, and I started in Canada. Now I'm in the States, so I've changed locations, I've changed titles, I've changed. My team has grown and changed so much, and just the shape of the work as well. So it's amazing. Like even in the in the grand scope of things, 8-9 years is maybe not that much in the scope of the company, but how long the company's been around, but it feels like even longer because I've just seen so many iterations of the work that I'm in, and it's a very high growth, high change company, I think, and that's some people love that, and some people don't, and I think for whatever reason I've just really thrived in an environment where there's always something new coming down the pipe, and there's certainly there's skills I've built that I'm still using, of course, over the time, but I love kind of that unexpected challenge that I know is coming at some point. I just love that knowing that's on the horizon. There's going to be something new and exciting.
Mhm.
But
Absolutely. It's
so
boring that way.
yeah, it keeps it interesting. Yeah, exactly. So when we started, the studio was the photo studio. We shot a little bit of video, mostly just photo at that time. Was inside the head office, which is in Vancouver. It's in this awesome neighborhood called Kitsilano, right by the water, really beautiful. And it was a really small team. We shot everything there. I think our model roster was maybe 4. I think like one guy, 3 women. Um, Everything was just very small and contained, and I mean, that was great in many ways because we could make it super efficient and everything was very dialed. But over the years, I mean, our product volume has grown, our global reach has grown. The company is just night and day since then. So what we realized after a certain amount of time is that we didn't have enough space, we didn't have enough people, we didn't have the access to the talent and the models and the crew that we needed to really deliver the content that we need as a global brand. It just was still feeling a little bit too backyard, homegrown. Like that was awesome for a certain time with the company, but we really needed to just step it
Take
up.
it to that next level.
Yeah, so yeah, it made me laugh that everything was moved to LA, and I was like, okay, here we go. I'm back to
Like,
LA.
hello, old friend. I know
Yeah,
you.
live my life forever. Which is, I think, the nature of the work I do. It's always been photo video production focused. So I think that's just I've kind of always known that there's always going to be such a big industry for that in LA, and so I wasn't surprised. But yeah, we did that my second year. So it was only the first year that I was there in Vancouver that the studio was there and the team was there, and then ever since then it's been in LA. That's been since 2017.
Mhm. So now you're back in LA, which I think is, it feels familiar to you, but you're still in this new job. I mean, you're a year into it. How long do you feel like it took you until you got your footing in that new role? Do you feel like you felt pretty solid a year in, or were you still kind of
Uh,
figuring out the players and when it was okay to
yeah.
share an idea or
Oh, I think both. Every day was a little bit of both, and there were days where I felt very confident and very, yeah, I got this, and ooh, I have a great idea for that, and I'd find something that I could improve, or I'd find an area that I could jump in and help with, and that would kind of, light bulbs would go on. And then there were definitely days where I was like, I've never worked in apparel, number one, and I love the product, and even though the work I am doing is very applicable to my background and my experience, a lot of the cross-functional partners I was working with came from fashion backgrounds and product design, and we would be in meetings just speaking different languages. And my way of coping with it was to listen. And every time I felt like when I was in one of those situations, I would just let the other person talk because I learned and absorbed so much just by hearing, okay, and then putting things together. And um, I don't know. I mean, I think I love learning new things, so that just felt like an easy approach for me. But yeah, I mean, it can be intimidating at times for sure, stepping into a new world like that. It's not just the new people and the new country and all of that. It's oh, this work is like, okay, yes, I can do it. I see all the ways that it works, but it's a little bit of a new, brave new world.
And it makes sense too, because your mind is growing and you're taking on so much new information. I remember when I made a switch of industries from sports marketing to healthcare marketing, there were
Mhm.
days, especially at first, when I would go home and I would just be spent because I felt like it took all the energy in me just to figure out the different terminology and,
Yeah.
what this service line did and how it related to, the overall picture and who was involved in this fat aspect and where did I need this approval. And it's funny because when you're in a job for a while you can get kind of used to having your routine and your go-to's, and there's confidence that comes with that.
Oh,
So when you switch into another type of industry or another role or another brand, a different location, it's unfamiliar,
mhm.
but there's that familiar feeling of being unfamiliar.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
call it like that back to school feeling. That's what it feels like for me.
Totally, yeah, and that being in that absorbing place, like you're saying, I mean, being just taking in new information all day, it's totally exhausting. You get home and that's a really that's an intense muscle to be flexing all day. Yeah. So yeah, I
So
guess.
how do you take care of yourself when you're in those positions? Because I mean, when you've been at your company for between 8, 9 years, and you've had between 8, 9 different roles during that time, that is quite a bit of change.
I'll say
So
like 4 to 5. I'd say
okay, 4 to
I
5.
think
That's
5.
still a lot though. That's a
Yeah.
lot. How do you so
Yeah.
when that time is coming, are there things that you do to prepare yourself for a change or kind of routines that you have just because you know that work's going to be heavier for a while, there's going to be some adjustments. So in your personal life, are there things that you shift? What's your process for navigating that?
Well, I will say I was very lucky coming into a company that is built around yoga and physical activity and mindfulness. And, I think now the brand has expanded into so many other areas of sport and lifestyle, but it was so yoga focused at the time when I started. And I did a lot of yoga. And that sounds cheesy working for a yoga company, but um, I can see why that company started in Vancouver. It's just a hotspot for so many amazing yoga and fitness instructors. I've never seen a place, certainly not a place I've lived or even visited, honestly, that had that wasn't, a giant city like a New York and LA, and Vancouver is a very big global city, but it just had so many amazing fitness studios. The community built around them was so strong, so it was easy to just step into a world where there was like Pilates and yoga and Legree and all these things and spin studios and stuff. So I got a lot more physically active. That kind of environment just didn't really exist when we were in Rhode Island. It wasn't the same vibe. And I think I really needed that. I think I could tell that it was something I hadn't had for the past few years and before that. And so that was really when I was at work, I was very on. And then when I was after work, before or after, in my off hours doing a yoga class or a spin class, I was very off and I was very much in that place. And I really just tried to draw that, healthy detachment line. And honestly, that's something I've been really focusing on building and developing over the last probably 8 years. The whole time at that company is getting to a place where I can be very on, and then I can be very off when I have that time.
And how do you do that? I think one of the biggest things we struggle with as humans is when our mind is overactive, how do we shift it and redirect it to something else? Or how do we turn that off?
Great question. It doesn't happen easily. I think it takes a lot of you have to practice it. I think it's silly to expect your brain to be able to just, it's never going to happen that way. I mean, at least no one that I know. I think if you have the ability to do that, then nurture it because it's rare. And I think yes, put my phone away. This some of the easy things that everybody says, but even when you do that, I mean, especially as someone who's always been in uh, production, producer, operational type work, my brain immediately starts going to my to-do list every time. No matter what I'm doing, it's like, and it tries to go back there all the time, and I'm always kind of pulling it back. And I just try to be very patient and compassionate with myself, and never expect that it's just going to be a totally clear mind, and I'm going to be totally relaxed. I'm not going to be thinking about work. No, that's not real,
Do you
So
have certain scripts you tell yourself or things like when you notice that your mind is wandering maybe to that production to-do list, do you say like, Aria, leave work at work, focus here? Or like, what do you tell yourself to like, or do you just like, you just say, stop? Like, what do you do? What happens inside your head?
um, well, if I'm in a place where I can, I write a lot of things down. I don't, I, if I ever feel like I'm thinking about something I need to do, whether it's for work or life or, whatever it is, I'll write it down immediately because I just need to get it out of my head. Um, yeah. And if I'm out somewhere and, I
What
can't
if
do
you're doing yoga and you can't write it down?
right.
Do you try to like whisper it into your watch as a note?
Well, okay, I will say, quick plug, my favorite yoga teacher, Carolyn Budgel, she is based in Vancouver. She's a legacy ambassador for Lululemon. She still does, but she did this at the Lululemon office back in the day. She does this thing called spa yoga that is a beautiful blend between yin restorative yoga and a vinyasa flow. So there is a little bit of movement, but it's very minimal. And she's very supportive of stopping and doing whatever you need to do at any point during the class. If it's, I need to write something down, I need to lay down, I just need to lay down for the rest of the class, whatever, like she's very
That's cool.
supportive of that. So I would write it down even in yoga sometimes, but I mean, I think it's honestly just a practice of recognizing that it's happening. And when you can recognize it and identify it and put the name to it, oh, my brain's just going to my to-do list again. That's okay, no problem. And you just have to walk it back.
The
Uh,
acknowledgement and the pullback.
yeah, the acknowledgement is honestly, I think, the biggest hurdle because, yeah, it's just, I still work on it. It's something I'm still working on all the time.
Practice.
Yeah,
And
lifelong, probably.
so we talked a little bit about, when your mind is just running so fast, how to stop it, how to kind of create that boundary for yourself so that you have time to recharge and process and fill yourself up. On the other hand of that is my favorite aspect of my mind, which is the flow state. And as a creative, I know you know what I'm talking about, but like, where do you find your flow state? Do you feel it in yoga? Do you feel it when you're just hitting all of your marks in your list with what you're doing in a production day, and then all of a sudden you lay down at night and you're like, wow, I really flowed through this process today. I mean, where is that space for you?
I think I find that space a little bit at work and a little bit outside of work as well. And I think that's another one of those signals to me that I'm in a job that I want to stay in, or I'm in a career that feels right, because I can find that flow state even when I'm at work, even when I'm, I can get to a place where I feel like I'm using the right muscles in my brain, and I'm really doing something that makes me feel accomplished or makes me, like I love being able to, because a lot of people I think sometimes they see work as, I just have to get through this, or this is work, this is different, this is not the part of life that I enjoy. I just have to get through it so I can get to the parts of life I enjoy.
That's when I feel you're not in the right job, is when
Right, exactly, yeah.
you keep up, or you're interning.
Right,
Yeah, you're starting out in your career. You have no choice. Like, I'm
right.
sure you lugged around a lot of equipment and you still do, but it's not the primary focus of your job now, right?
Right. No, not at all. And I think that's the goal, right? You want to get to a place where you're doing work that also lights you up just as much as your life does. And hopefully, I've never been super into the phrase work-life balance. I love the phrase work-life blend has always resonated a little bit more for me. I mean, even that one feels a little bit, I don't know, but it's never felt like it has to be perfectly balanced to me, or I love when it blends, when it feels like you have a little bit of both. They're both making you feel challenged, they're both making you feel accomplished, they're both, you know what I mean? It's yeah, I think it's good to have that in both places. And to answer your question, I would say, at least at work, the two times that I really feel that flow state is uh, when I'm managing my team, when I'm in the work with my team, when we're on set together for a shoot, when we're working on a big project together, especially when I can see my team really carrying things and I can see them doing something a little bit outside of their comfort zone and doing it well and growing a little bit. When I see those moments where they're kind of stepping into the next thing and getting something positive out of it, and we're kind of in it together. Love that. I love, like, the managing people part has always been huge for me. And I love doing budgets.
Budgets. Wait, what? I was not expecting that. That's like one of my least favorite things.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And I've always done budgeting work in some capacity. I mean, even at Disney, you have to, like, budget and schedule are really the two big things you're managing. And it's lots of different types of artists that have to fit into the budget and the schedule for each department you're in. But it's always been some sort of aspect of my work. I've never been able to really dive into it and manage the size and scope and complexity the way I do at Lululemon, because it is such a ever-changing high growth company. There are always new things to factor in, and you have to build so many um, redundancies and plan Bs, and you have to be creative. And I love that. I also love that money's not emotional, at least not in that sense. It's just numbers on a screen, and I think a perfect balance for me between the people part of it. On the other hand, there is a lot of emotion there. It's a real person. That's a different part of my brain, and I think the budget work is a nice component to that. So, yeah. Yeah.
So, and in a little bit about your role now, like so if you were describing to someone in like 3 sentences, what would you say it is that you do?
Oh, okay.
Like packaging it in a tweet.
The elevator pitch for my job.
Yeah.
Okay, I would say my job is all about creating visual content. So we're talking photo, video, visual representations of the brand that resonate with a wide variety of our many different types of guests. So this is not a nice tidy 3 sentences. I lead the operational production side of that. So any of that studio branded content you're seeing out in the world, my job is to make sure it comes to life on schedule, on budget, to make sure the creative directors are delivering what their vision of what they want, and it's not hindered by logistical operational barriers, and to make sure that the right people are in place to do it every time, because a lot of my job is about putting the right people in place to bring it to life.
So when you're looking at putting the right people into place, what are some things that you look for? Do you look at personality types? Do you look for different types of backgrounds that bring different ideas?
Yeah. I think one of the unique things about my team and the photo studio team in general is that it's always been a mix of, our internal Lululemon employees, staff who have been with the company from 1 year to 10 years. I have a couple of people on my team who have been for 10 years plus. So they've even exceeded my time there. It's always been a blend of that and also freelance folks, freelance support, because we shoot, and this is not an exaggeration, we shoot at least one set every day, photo set every day, usually 2 to 3. So we do 5 to 12 shoots every single week. And so we have to have a team that can deliver in an efficient way at that volume, while also not letting things get stale and keeping things fresh and interesting and bringing new life to the work, even though we have to keep doing it every day. So what we've built over the years is this team that's kind of a little bit of everybody. We have freelance photographers, stylists, freelance hair and makeup artists. Those folks, of course, the models. They're not Lululemon employees. They're coming in. They shoot and work with other clients, so they're coming in with fresh ideas from other clients. And then they partner with us, the folks who know the brand and the company really well, and we work together to bring it to life. So you always have that's the best way, I think, is to have a little bit of
That. It's that mix of external team
Mhm.
members and internal team members. So
Yeah.
they're going on these different shoots, they're seeing different trends, what others are doing. You have your clearly defined vision of your brand where you're at. So it's that merging and that blending.
Yes. And I think it's always I think a big part of my role is getting those people in place from the right areas, so it's the right mix, but also making everyone feel like they're one team, making them feel like they're all working toward the same goal, that no one's treated less than just because they're coming from this place instead of from Lululemon. I think it's we've always been really intentional about making our models and our crew and our internal team feel like they're one, that they're
Everyone
really in
together.
lockstep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and when you mentioned you said between 5 and 12 shoots a week. That's a lot over the course of a month. How far ahead are you planning those shoots? I imagine, with juggling and in your role, you're working on deadlines that are hitting this week, next week, 3 weeks from now, and then maybe
Yeah.
6 months out. I'm not sure with clothing and retail, like how far ahead you're able to plan. Is it 6 months? Is it?
Well, and it's different. Each arm of the company is a little bit different. Obviously, the bigger editorial campaign shoots, big like seasonal brand campaign shoots, we do our plan. They have a much longer timeline. We only do them, hence seasonal. We only do them, 3, 4 times a year, so they are much more elongated. Because we're delivering content that generally has I would say the fastest. Sometimes we're shooting 2 weeks before the product goes live. Sometimes, ideally, it's 6 to 8 weeks. But it's basically a month or two at a time. We're cycling through our product for that season, and our goal is that type of work that's just ongoing for the product photography on our site and our digital marketing channels is kind of like a train that just runs by itself, and that's where we are now. We've built that up over the years to get to a place where that work can just run all the time. And the gift of that is that we have amazing people keeping that running, so that we can, especially in my role, the last 4 or 5 years has been a lot about stepping out of that and getting to a place where I can really focus on longer term strategy, whether it's the budget strategy for the team or the strategy of how we're going to deliver XYZ for our winter campaign to support whatever. There are so many other pieces of the work that I've been able to get into over the last few years that's brought a lot of joy. I think it's helped me feel like what I was describing, that I'm in a little bit of a different role every year, because I get to focus on different levels of the work. And I love being in I can jump into the weeds if I need to, but I love being in that bigger picture strategy work too, and really seeing the volume of content we're producing from a little bit higher up. It's great. I love that view.
Well, and what's been required of content has expanded so much. I'm sure just since you started at the company with social media becoming even more video driven, for example, and it's very visual, and the amount of product that you have that you're putting out there. I
Yeah,
imagine
a
that
lot.
the amount of work that you're required to put out is just ballooned.
It really has, yeah. And it's yeah, exactly. You're not just when we were shooting at the studio in Vancouver in the first, year, couple of years, it was very much about just photo video for the website. It was just the website. And now there is that, but not just the North America website. There's also because the content we shoot is for all of our global markets. So Australia is using it and Europe is using it. And we're what we have to be very thoughtful about that. We have to not only because they have different timelines and they may want like Australia is a completely different season for us, and than us. And there are so many other considerations we've had to bring into the work as the business has grown. And actually, to your point about video, we launched a studio in China a couple of years ago, and it's in Shanghai. And because the market there has been growing so fast, and that was really the place where they needed to be able to deliver content that was more specific to their market than what we could do, and specifically in the area of video, because it's amazing to see how video focused their marketing platforms are, because they actually, yes, they have the .cn, their .com, and they of course guest shop there, but there's such a huge component of the traffic that just goes through WeChat and Tmall and these platforms that we don't, we just don't have that in North America, and it's a very different business need. So yeah, every time we step into a new market, there's things like that we have to learn and grow around and build things around, and to keep that train running.
So
But I love that part of it.
are you someone who's excited by change?
Yes,
Because
love it.
your company is growing and changing, and so that's something that you embrace.
Oh
You're like,
yes, I mean, honestly, the folks that I have seen come into Lululemon and leave relatively quickly are the folks who don't like change pretty much every time, because we have change almost every day, and sometimes it's change that affects your work in a really positive way. Sometimes it can be really challenging, and you have to be able to take both and embrace both. And yeah, I mean, I love working for a company. I love working for a brand. I don't that part I like that I like that part staying the same versus being in the freelance world. But I think if I was at a company where it was just show up every day, do the same thing, don't ask questions, don't change anything. I mean, I have been in work like that, and it's not for me.
so there's something to be said too for, there's the external change that happens. It's the, rolling out in different markets or different campaigns or different seasons, whatever it might be that you're encountering. But then there's also intentional change and strategic change that you're initiating and you're, involving in your processes yourself. So when you're navigating so much change going on and so much growth happening in a company, how are you able to kind of find that time to also be strategic and thoughtful and to contribute ideas that take you to that next step?
That's a great question, and I would say it's two things. It's a little bit the people part we were talking about, getting the right people. I think I've seen my team over the years I've been at Lululemon. I've seen my team grow, shrink, grow. Kind of it's been this constantly changing thing. Lots of new people coming in and turnover, and I think being able to recognize when you have the right crew, the right team, and really focusing on developing them and growing those people because they're the right fit. When you can see that, when it really gels, having the right people in the work can make all the difference. I'm very lucky in that way. I love my team. I think and obviously I'm biased, but I think they are so strong and also dedicated and so creative in what they do that it's just been a really great combo. And I think also being in the weeds, or being in the day-to-day work, which is a necessity sometimes, being in the bigger picture strategy work, also a necessity. It's just different. For me, it just kind of feels like different parts of my brain. And I think one of the skills I've developed over the years, especially at Lululemon and also just across my career in general, is the ability to shift between those more and more seamlessly. So I can have a conversation that's about, a capsule we need to shoot for Team Canada next week. And then my next meeting can be about our budget planning for 2026, which is 2 years out. And being able to jump between those two and understand which part of my brain to turn on, in a sense. And I think that's really how I approach it, but that's also not something that comes super easy, and certainly not a skill I had when I was 25,
Yeah, it's something that you develop. It's that muscle that you
Yeah.
develop and you grow over time.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, there's certain muscles I'm working on when I'm doing my spin class and my yoga class, and then there's
There's the big muscle here.
yeah. You got to work all the muscles. Yeah.
Absolutely, all the muscle groups. So one thing I want to ask you about as you kind of, when you have these conversations, you reflect a bit on your career and where you've come. And I mean, just since the last time I officially interviewed you many years ago, so much has changed in your life. But what is a way that you are working to intentionally grow yourself right now? What's something that's important to you as a person?
Well, and also, thank goodness everything has changed. Thank goodness. I'm so happy about that. Or thank goodness so many things have changed. I love that. I hope that, if we talk in I hope it's sooner, but if we talk in another 15 years, just I hope we're saying the same thing. That to me would feel like success. I don't want, it's nice to have some constants, but I want to feel like I'm always growing. And sorry, you were asking about what I do to
Asking about
work on myself.
what
Yeah.
is a focus for you right now for growth? So what's something that you're working on?
I think the healthy detachment that I mentioned, that's been a big focus for me, and I think I see that as something that is helping me with work for sure, but it's also been a real personal benefit for me to. I mean, because I did love those early days at Disney where I was working 6 days a week and 14-hour days. It's why I couldn't imagine doing that right now. I would burn out so fast, but at the time I loved it. But I think over the years, as I've learned more about myself and I've grown more and I've matured more and I've moved through other areas of my career, I think I've really come to recognize the importance of knowing how to detach between work and life, knowing when they can come together and where those boundaries are, and not. And the healthy part for me means knowing that when I do want to detach from work, or I do want to really be focused on work and detach from something going on in life, that's healthy and that's normal. And knowing how to embrace that feels like a real personal growth for me, because I spent a lot of years where work was my life. It was all just one thing. And it's been really, I think it's been really lovely to see over the last 5 or so years. I think really, it's really only been maybe 5, 6 years to see, to build more of a differentiation between those things. And it's helped me get more out of each, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's beautiful when something that's taking place in your personal life can positively impact the person that you are when you show up at work and vice
Mhm.
versa, because you are the same person, but it's different aspects of yourself that you're drawing from and utilizing when you're in these different
Yeah,
scenarios.
I think, I love the idea of, a lot of folks talk about bringing the whole person to work, and I support that. And I never want anyone at work to feel like they have to hide any part of themselves that they don't want to, or that feels like they have to put on a mask. I never want that kind of environment. I want everyone to feel like they can be themselves and be open if they want to, but also never feel like they have to. I always respect I always respect their personal boundaries, and I will always, at least as a manager, I never, and I maybe even do this to a fault, but I almost never ask people about their personal life. I'll talk to them about it if they bring it up, if they initiate, but I'm very careful not to feel like they have to share everything with their boss. And I think what I've noticed as a result, I feel like my team is very open and trusting of each other, because everyone respects each other's time and respects each other's boundaries in a really healthy way. And I want to just keep building and fostering that. I think it's a very healthy work environment to exist in. and
Sounds
not be everywhere, you know?
like absolutely. It sounds amazing. Any parting advice?
Yes. Okay. Actually, this is advice I got from one of my former bosses at Disney, and it's a very simple thing, but for some reason it's really stuck with me. She said it's all about who you line up behind. And when I first heard that, it sounded kind of, I was like, well, okay, but what if you want to be leading the line? And what, like, like, why do you have to just get behind someone? And what if you want to do your own thing? But the more I've matured and the more I've worked through my career and the more I've thought about that, I actually love it because I think what it telegraphs to me is that in most cases, not everyone, but in most cases, you are always going to be working with others and you will always have someone who came before you and there will always be people coming after you. And to think about it in that way and understand the importance of the people you're surrounding yourself with, as much as, some of it's out of our control at a job, but still, I think the learning which people you gravitate towards because they hold the same values as you, or you work in a similar way, or you can learn something from them, or they're a good role model. That's what I really seek out. And I think as a result, I think I've been really lucky to have some excellent role models in my life and work life. And my hope is that I'm being that person for other people who are lining up behind me too.
I love that. I think that's amazing. And it's interesting like what can come with perspective and how
Mhm.
advice that at first you might, come up with the argument against in your head
Of
and
course.
being the piece that sticks with you that comes to mind now and that you want to share with others.
Well, I think she's about 15 years older than me. So at the time, now it's been 15 years and now I get
Yeah,
it.
you're like, I'm there.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
Sure. Yeah.
Absolutely love that. Well, thank you for sharing that. And thank you so much for your time today and for your advice. And I just wish you all the continued success. I've always been so proud of you and everything that you've done and love getting your life updates.
Oh, same. I still remember being in the car with you when you got the call for the job that you have now. And it was
I
a wonderful moment. I love
It's
it.
amazing. Yeah. So Aria was with me in my car. You were out in Phoenix for a Lululemon retreat, right?
Mhm.
And we were together. We met up. I had my little dog, Zoe, my little Shih Tzu at the time, who you're a big dog person too, and an animal person. So you get it. She loved you. Such a hot day. I mean, so
Oh, yeah.
hot. It was so hot there. And I remember getting the call and there was a voicemail from the man who's now one of my bosses. And I was so excited. I was thrilled. And we got to just celebrate together. And I remember we took a picture in front of the fountain at the resort. And I had this
Yeah.
little red shirt on and then little Zoe's there. And like, I just remember I like felt so excited, it just
Yeah.
captured that moment. And it's so special that I got to share that moment with you. That
Oh,
was, that was
it was so
such a
lovely and
big
like
thing.
unexpected, but so perfect. I was like,
Yeah.
and people here are still talking about it.
Yeah, because I told you I had interviewed there and I was waiting to hear back. So it was such a neat thing and it just felt really special. And I love when you've had friends for a long time and you can point back to different aspects of your life and things that you've gone through and things that you've done. And it's very cool. So I still remember too when you came out to Arizona and you went to see the Dave Matthews Band.
Gosh. Yeah.
How many Dave Matthews Band concerts have you been to now?
You
It's
know,
it,
oof.
definitely double digits, but is it triple yet?
Definitely, it's triple digits, but I will say, and maybe this is definitely the first time I'm admitting this on a recording, but I kind of stopped going to see them.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I think
You
that
wanted to
era.
see someone else? You wanted to see Casey Musgraves?
I am seeing Casey Musgraves in a few days. No, I still go to tons of live concert. I mean, I think I always will. I love live music. I think that's one of my most treasured happy places, always has been, and so that definitely has not stopped, but I'm branching out. I've been exploring a lot of other music the last few years, and I've just opened up to so many other options, which has been really fun. And I mean, I will always have a special place for them in my heart, but I'm just I'm trying to branch out. That's the whole point of the combo, right, is like time passing and evolving and
Yeah.
change.
Seeing other artists out there doing their thing. I love that. And it's got to be
Yeah.
inspiring for you creatively too. And
Oh, yeah.
you're probably your production mind is clicking when you go to live events too, right? Because you
My
see
gosh.
things through a different lens than your average audience member who's there just to, have a good time.
It is a blessing and a curse because I was going to say I went to see Dead and Company a few times at the Sphere in Vegas this summer. And speaking of hot, oh my gosh, 112 degrees, murder. But love the shows were incredible, and it was. I think every night I went, I was equally blown away, if not more, by just trying to comprehend how they made this thing, how they built this structure, how it's like this giant adult planetarium. It's like the biggest IMAX you could ever possibly imagine, and it feels so. It almost doesn't feel real. It's wild. So yes, it's like, yeah, blessing and a curse. Every time I go see any sort of show, I'm thinking about how they made it and how did they, every movie I watch, I'm thinking about how much did that cost and how long did it take them to shoot this and how did they build that? But I love it. So
It's so fun too. And I love that, creative process of coming together. And I think so many people might think, well, when you do the production side, it's not as creative as if you're, the photographer or if you're the person who's,
yes,
the writer, whatever it might be. Yeah. But I completely disagree. You are just as much of a creative person as anyone else because it requires that creative thinking and you never know where the next idea is going to come from. And, it's all the creative process. You really need every aspect of the process to bring that show together that you're watching on TV or the image that you're seeing when you're on social media. I mean,
I 110% agree. I think there is, yes, I think, creative thinking is just as much about getting creative with money and time as it is with how you're holding the camera. So yes, totally.
And finding flow state with budgets.
Yes.
I might be bringing that up again in the future over wine and being like, how do you do this? Because that will never be me.
I love it so much. I love Excel. I love it. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but
well, I'm glad we have people that think like you do too. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
You're so welcome. Thank you. This was a pleasure.
At I Want Her Job, we are mentors, risk takers, motivated by helping everyday women, goal setting, change leading, and ambitious, storytellers and story lovers, invested not in one, but in the whole. If you're with me, please share this podcast with someone in your life who's going through a season of change. All you have to do on iTunes is click on those three little dots in the upper right corner and select share episode. And if you're on YouTube, simply send the link. And while you're there, if you'd leave a review, I'd really appreciate it because this podcast can only grow through people just like you, through listeners like you, through viewers like you who are sharing this with the loved ones in your life. Thank you. Your time is the greatest gift that you could give me, and I'm very grateful for that. I hope something in today's show resonated with you and that it inspires you to inspire others. Keep making it happen.